first thing I want to ask you to do is to take a moment and really pay attention to the story that is in your head about me and this banjo. Just pay attention to that story. And then tune the banjo so it doesn't hurt. So the reason I asked you about that image, it probably wasn't until, so I'm 51, turned 51 April 2nd of this year, and it was probably in the mid to late 80s when I first saw a black man play a banjo. And I'd seen images before that, but most of them were about people in blackface or minstrels. And so that person was Taj Mahal, and I'd loved banjo before that, but had never, he connected it to blackness in a way that I'd never experienced before. I actually didn't learn a lot about the banjo after that. So I'm a mixed race black man, born in Boston. I've been in New Haven since 2006. This is my great-grandmother's banjo, my mother's side. So on the side that is mostly Irish and Swedish. My mom's white, my dad's black. I'm also Cherokee, Mi'kmaq, and of African heritage. The Halfkenny name comes down through Nova Scotia. That's its own interesting story, which I'll tell for another time. And so this banjo hung on the wall for a certain period of time. I would actually take it down every now and then and try to make some sound come out of it, but it wasn't tuned, and these strings are metal, and they really hurt. So I was like, why would you play this? Like, it's really kind of hurt. There's metal in it, wood, and stuff, and I don't know how to make any music with it. And so I kind of went on my life, and it went on its own. And probably about 5 years ago, my mom gave it back to me. A cousin of mine had it for a little while and played it, and then returned it, was kind of moving on to some other instruments. And as soon as I got it back, the head exploded, and the bridge exploded with it. The head is this I think is a synthetic hide, but typically it's to make it be animal hide, cow hide, goat hide. And then it sat, and I was really like, oh my God, it like came to my home and exploded. And I was like, oh, I should really do something with this. I should at least restore it. It's this family piece. And a boyfriend of my sister-in-law's was a luthier and made and repaired instruments. And I gave it to him, and he did this beautiful job of restoring it. And my intention was just to have it restored and hold it, but I was then really called to learn it. So I've now been playing for about 3 years. And I've done a lot of performing in my life, and so I don't perform with this, but I share it. And so I want to share both some playing of this with you, but partnered really with the story of it, because what this has meant to me has been really moving and healing and really profound. It's something that, in learning its history, so the banjo was originally invented, really, as the first American homegrown instrument created by enslaved Africans. And for the first 400 years of its existence was played exclusively by enslaved Africans here. And then in time, it became what you see now, kind of the center point, the kind of pinnacle of what is considered whiteness. And it's a really powerful journey that I've been on to learn that, and I really invite anyone to do some exploring around how it went from this African instrument, this really is African-American instrument, to a different kind of American, uber American whiteness instrument. So I'm going to play a little and then I'll talk a little. So this, this piece is called Boil Them Cabbage Down. And the other thing I want to say is that I'm super nervous. I've done lots of performing. I've actually performed dance and music in front of thousands of people. And the relationship that I have with this and the meaning that it has with me, that I have with it, is a whole different thing. And so that's really what I want to share, and share the playing, and share the sound of it, and share the singing of it. Not my singing, but singing, and we'll do that here. But it's also to say that a good friend of mine invited me to share that with you, because there's so much, there's such a blessing of like what Concat is, for example, in terms of holding spaces of blackness that do more than just kind of recognize our humanity. And there's this piece around black excellence, which I think is really important. And I think there's something around black ordinariness and just personhood, which I think is also important. And so in my, however it comes out, I'll be expressing some of that ordinariness. Maybe not, you know, but I'm giving myself permission for that too. So I welcome great-grandma Rhonda Gore, her daughter Jean Louise Carlson, here. So the reason this has been, it's been such a powerful journey is that, so there's the instrument itself and its story and its connection to blackness and whiteness and what white supremacy does. But it also happened that way within my family as well. And what I realized later, so my parents were activists, Communist Party, Panther Party. I grew up with a pretty complex understanding of systems of oppression, dynamics around class and race, etc. And my mom was born in upstate New York in Jamestown, which is a small town south of Buffalo, near Lake Chautauqua. And I always thought that my grandmother, she was a school teacher, so I learned her brilliance later. But for a long time, I kind of saw her as this older white woman in a small town, not knowing really what to do with this brown boy coming into the kind of household. And it wasn't that I ever felt othered, except for the fact that oftentimes I'd be in this small town in upstate New York as the only black and brown person around. And as I got older, you know, as a child, it was kind of easy. This is my grandma, it's fine. As I got older, to be a teenager, all these complexities, nobody understands me, and ways that was true, and ways that I've also kind of created that story. But what it did was it made it hard for me to recognize ways that she could really see me and that she really reached out to me. There's an artist named Henry Asawa Tanner. He painted a piece called The Banjo Lesson. And she sent that print to me when I was in college. And it's a really powerful painting. It's an African-American artist. And the painting is of an older black man with a young boy in his lap holding a banjo together in this pretty sparse shack. And he's teaching. And when I first got that, I was like, wow, this is really beautiful. And all the other images around like minstreling and blackface and banjo and like, oh, it's this thing that we're supposed to be leaving behind to be free. Like that story was really strong in me. And while I appreciated it, I kind of learned a little bit about that, I really didn't see what she was doing. I didn't really see her understanding and reaching out to me. And that was also something that white supremacy did. Right? It made me perceive distance when there wasn't distance. It did all kinds of other things, but that's the really powerful thing that it did. And she passed away 2 years ago. And super lucid. I was blessed to see her in the hospital just before she died. And she said to me, I really loved all of you. And I got to really be with that and say to her that I really loved all of her. And even as I knew that to be true, that has also been something where I realized there was a lot I didn't see because of that. And so this is this like, as Karen said, I do a lot of healing work, and this has been something that there's something about sharing this with story and sound that is a part of that healing, as a part of that healing for me, and it's something that I share with others for however it lands, for whatever that is for you. I can't do a piece. How are we doing time? This is, I'll try to play this. This is something I wrote recently. It was in the maybe not finished, but it's where it's at. Apparently my great-grandmother also played the wide-mouth harmonica, which I've not attempted. This is plenty. And that side of my family are really super strong, super smart women. Really working to claim independence and a sense of themselves. Not that sexism is gone and male supremacy is gone, but it was certainly much more constraining for them in their lives. My grandmother married my grandfather. They were high school sweethearts, and he was like captain of the football team, went to West Point, was in the military. He was in the Army Air Corps, and was a part of what was the Flying Tigers, which in terms of what became the Air Force. And he was actually a commander of a bombing squadron, and died in World War II, actually before he got to see my mom. And he's Paul James O'Brien, and I've inherited the O'Brien eyebrows and eyes, which has been a really interesting thing because there are other people in the family who were white who did not inherit that. So it's a really interesting piece that the people of color from his line have inherited that kind of Irish piece. And so she had my mom and my mother's older sister, my Aunt Judy, and was a single mom in 1943 or 5. And she had pressure put on her by her mother and her father not to continue to be a single mom. And she had a best friend, actually the three of them were friends, Robert Carlson, my grandmother Jean Louise, and my biological grandfather Paul James. And she ended up marrying him, Robert Carlson, with shared love as well as the pressures of what a family is supposed to look like. And then they had 3 more daughters. And it's a really powerful piece. A way that the split kind of occurred between my mom and her older sister and then the 3 younger sisters. But all that's also a whole other story. But all that's to say is growing up with those 5 women and the strength of my grandmother and the kind of lineage from my great-grandmother who I didn't know, has certainly, I'm not going to say this, but has certainly prepared me to really support the strength and the power of my daughter, Tommy Louise Halfkenny. And this marriage with my wife and her line of really strong women is something that is a part of this inheritance and is a part of how to really support their strength and their fire and their beauty and their brilliance. So I guess I'll finish up really by saying Happy Mother's Day to those mothers in recognition of all that it's meant to be a mother, the good and the glorious and the blissful and the connectedness and the pain and the sadness and the sacrifice and the weariness. And I hope that us men can do a lot better to make it better for everybody. Better for everybody. So we don't have to suffer. So women don't have to suffer. So everybody in between doesn't have to suffer. Everybody on the margin doesn't have to suffer. So I hope that you then remember and bring your image back to what it means for me, holding this banjo, to be sitting in front of you, and what that conjures up. And I'm really thankful for this opportunity. I feel a lot less nervous on this end of things. And I'm really happy to have shared this all with you. Thank you.